Good evening, everyone. Can they hear me? How do I know? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rajesh Rajan from PwC. I'm a director at PwC, and I lead the Emerging Technologies Group of PwC. Welcome to this session. So it's got a very interesting topic today. The topic is achieving growth in the digital age beyond Smac. Right? So we've been discussing a lot about Smac. What are the big benefits it can give us? So now the attempt is to go beyond it because as a part of Smac, if you look at it, social, mobility, analytics, and cloud, everyone has been talking about. Most of you would have also, gone through a session or two in be it on the cloud or mobility or social and so on. So our attempt here is to go beyond that now because, for example, cloud is reaching to a stage of maturity and production. Most of the people have been starting to, migrate their workloads to cloud. So there are few technologies which would now be considered as emerged technologies, not just emerging technologies, right? So as some of the technologies become emerged, there will be new technologies that would come in order to drive growth through the digital age. Right? So with that, I'll just get started with my presentation. Just in case if you have any questions, please feel free to keep it with you. And towards the end of the presentation, there is time for Q&A, and we'll take the questions then. So there are just three major topics as a part of the content. One is setting the scene or setting the context for you. And the second one is about how do you use digital to, to set up a path to grow. And the third one is, of course, the conclusion. So it's pretty simple and straight. Let's do a quick scuba dive into setting the scene. Now, if you look at it, 25% of organizations will have a chief digital officer by 2015, right? So what are these chief digital officers? What are their roles if you look at it? So the chief digital officer's main role is to enable growth of an organization or generate revenues, to be precise, by translating or converting their traditional models into futuristic models or the digital models, right? So they basically transform their organization from the traditional models to the digital models, thereby generating revenues or saving a lot of cost for the organization. So they are the chief digital officers. So let us see now 20% of the CIOs say that they're already functioning in this capacity of chief digital officers, as Wall Street says. And 52% of the CEOs already say that they have a digital strategy. So when I say digital strategy, it's a strategy which is combination of all the Smac components, right? And beyond that as well. So we will touch upon what are those technologies above and beyond Smac which is going to create a larger impact, or is it already creating a larger impact? And 19% of the leaders expect to see chief digital officers by 2014. So we are talking about 19% by end of 2014, 25% by end of 2015. So there is a steady growth in the chief digital officers, and 17% expect to see a chief data officers as well. So you look at the way that transformation is happening based on the digital landscape. So the roles are changing here. And if you look at it, only 26% of the leaders tell us that their company is striving to be a pioneer in the industry. So if you look at large, names and big names like Starbucks or Harvard University are notable organizations which already have a digital officer, right? So just presenting you the kind of a quick tipping point on the digital space, right? To the left-hand side, you have on one hand, we see this is an output that is out of Russell Reynolds from Financial Times. Out of 300 companies that has been, interviewed and surveyed, We found that Financial Times found that this is across Asia, across Europe and US. So only 17 out of 300 had highly digital boards, which means at least with one member of the board playing a role of the digital officer. And 217 companies had no digital board members at all, or only 66 of the companies had one digital board as a member. So on the other side, if you look at it, in the US, 15% of newly elected board members, had a digital experience. So that is another very interesting fact. And the other part is, very encouraging part is that from 15%, it is bound to grow till 19% in the US, with the number of digital experience officers getting on the board. So there is a steady increase by 20 to 30% in the number of digital officers or with digital experiences getting in. And in Europe, 5% of the newly elected board members have digital experiences, and that is set to rise 8% in this year. Walmart, Berkshire Hathaway, Procter & Gamble, FedEx, Coca-Cola, and Allstate also have digital boards. I will also narrate a quick example by Allstate, how they've been able to impact a digital strategy and how they have derived value out of implementing digital. So the need of the hour is some fresh digital blood, right? Which essentially means there is a strong urgency for people to move into digital space, and from how the large traditional companies have to adapt, right? So there are four major parts to it. One is digital entrepreneurs. A sudden trend, we're seeing a sudden trend. The Financial Times is seeing a sudden trend. Even in the most traditional companies, looking for non-executive director positions, right, with experiences of running internet-based companies, which means these people have enormous amount of experience in digital space, and they are the people who've been hired in the non-executive director positions of most of the traditional companies in the effort to digitize their traditional landscape, right? And the second part is about in the digital revolution is digital acquisition. So which means larger players are starting to eat into the small players or new entrepreneurs in the digital strategy board. So if you look at it, Thomas Cook, urged them to snap up, small internet-based rivals where they bought over. So this kind of an acquisition is happening in the digital space, where larger players, right, in the effort to convert them into a digital strategy, have been doing this acquisition. Digital in the boardroom. So it is not only CIO's role, but it is also felt that the digital is going above and beyond those kind of roles and into the boardrooms as well. So it essentially means to say that in the boardroom there is a clear representation of someone who is going to carry the agenda of digital specialists. And the other part is about digital strategy. If you look at digital board members, role was primarily education. So now they are thinking about persuading the board to think about a change. So in order to do a change, they need a digital strategy, and how the digital strategy can basically help them towards transformation of their enterprise. Okay, so that is setting the scene of what is digital, why digital, and how it is impacting the ecosystem in the enterprise. Now we're looking at, since digital is changing the path to growth, right? How is it impacting the growth? So we need to demonstrate how we live a digital revolution. And of course, it has got its own merits and demerits to it. So it's got its threats, it's got opportunities. So we'll delve a little more deeper into how digital has can help and how it has helped some of the organizations, right? So the first letter, as you can see on this slide, is the Internet of Things, right? I'm sure a few people would have heard. That's going to be the new paradigm. I'm sure many people would have heard about Smac, and these four digital technologies have been around for quite some time. As I told you, cloud has already emerged more or less, with lots of people embracing it. Mobility is already a reality today. Social people have been, adopting and leveraging social data. And analytics is another big way where most of the people have been leveraging data in order to collect some business insights out of analytics, right? So these four major trends have always been there. And now how is it contributing to the next wave called the Internet of Things? So Internet of Things, let me define it before we, get into this, is about, Internet of Things is also about a very clearly, uniquely identifiable object in the form of a, in the form of a structure like Internet, right? Just to give you a simple example, the Internet of Things we are talking about is going to generate a lot of data, humongous amount of data. And the source of this Internet of Things data could be from social media. It could be from social media through smartphones. Smartphones could be generating a lot of data, right? It could be structured, unstructured, whatever it is. And so there has been a lot of source of data which is, generated by human, right? That is one part of the Internet of Things data being captured. The other part is about the sensors, the machines generating a lot of data. It could be the tire of your car, it could be the transponders, it could be the routers, it could be the switches. So it could be, aircraft engines fitted with sensors. So a whole lot of data that is going to be generated. Now there is a data deluge and there are different sources of data that we're seeing. So in this revolution, we are looking at innovation cycles, right? So if you look at from 1650, the cycles of innovations, so ABC basically represents first the innovation phase, which is people identify a good research, a good invention comes out, it is operationalized, it gets into production, people start to apply it, see the benefit of it, and then after that it becomes deprecated, right? So that's a sinusoidal wave that has been happening over 130 years, then it becomes 100 years, then it becomes 80 years, then it becomes 50 years. So the adoption and stagnation of these technologies, their life cycle is getting shorter and shorter, right? So here we are looking at the age of Internet of Things, and between 2007 and 2020, I suppose. So the Internet of Things is powered by data coming in from social media, smartphones, machines, data analytics, intelligence data, and so on and so forth, right? So we're seeing this is the new age of digital, where Internet of Things is going to be the large one, where large companies have already starting to benefit from applying intelligence on the Internet of Things. And so that also connects to the big data. So big data is also now focused on getting data from human-generated data as well as machine-readable data. There are enough analytics and business insights that have been derived from the big data. So the Internet of Things is what is giving those kind of inputs, or the data is being generated through this particular venue. So with that, we feel that the revolutionary, this is a revolutionary innovation, and it will follow evolutionary applications, because until and unless there is enough applications of this innovation that we're talking about, it's not going to be a success. So now, before we go beyond Smac, let us define Smac and what is the situation of Smac. Let's quickly cross over the platform and try to find the individual features of it. So Smac, as you all know, social media, smart mobility, new consumption analytics, as we call it, or big data analytics, and cloud computing. So all of these have been shaping up for quite some time now, right? So the best part about this is social media, if you look at it, are changing the customer's behavior, one. And it is also changing enterprises' attitude towards customers, right? Because customers are able to talk to them, and the enterprises are able to connect to the last mile, getting the feedback. Customer service is very effective. So all this has been happening, and they're able to react based on active listening. So that is happening very, very fast. So that's one of the reasons that the social media has been changing customers' behavior. Smartphones brings internet and apps on the go with the mass market. Analytics is the new thing. As I said, the big data analytics. and that is also fueling a customer experience, right? And cloud has already been demonstrated and proven in the markets as of now, with a lot of security also being built in, compliance models have been built in, with unlimited processing powers and, virtually unlimited, but there's always a limit, but unlimited processing power delivered to everyone on any device. So if you look at stats, innovation in the digital age has already been driving an explosive growth. So some of the quick stats here, mobile technology, 1.2 billion mobile phones already, and out of which, if you look at it, it's almost close to 25 to 30% being, smartphones. So this number is catching up, and in a matter of time, 50% of the overall phones might be smartphones. And social media users, if you look at 1 billion, is already Facebook users, and they're already having a opportunity and of processing 48 hours of video being uploaded into YouTube for every minute. And internet, if you look at it, 1.8 billion global internet users and 1.2 billion mobile internet users already, which means the mobile internet is really picking up pace. And in digital economy, so this is where everything boils down on digital. So 20.4 trillion is the kind of estimated digital economy size, which almost means 1/3 of global GDP is from the digital economy. So that's a huge contributor. If you look at exact, more or less the approximate revenues, about 54 billion global internet ad revenues itself, 16% Google Pay click growth. Cloud spending, if you look at it, 23 billion in public cloud spending, and 35% growth in public spending globally. So that's another encouraging fact that also demonstrates the success of the digital innovations. So that being said, so what we're trying to say here is, in 1999 to 2007, these were the list of like project process digitization, product digitization. These were the kind of revolution or kind of major initiatives that were driven, and the disruptors that come in after this kind of a time frame are the Smac. And now we're looking at the next phase. Now we are slowly transitioning from Smac into the next digital ecosystem, which is integrated, which is customer-centric, which is continuous interactions being happening. It's not a one-to-one, but a many-to-many interaction happening through collaboration kind of a platform. So this is the new digital ecosystem we are trying to define, right? So what is the kind of a overarching model or the digital model, right? All of us understand there is a growth strategy attached to digital strategy, without which a digital strategy may not be fully, realizing to our benefits. So that's at the top. So business strategy aligned with the business model, and it should basically give you a growth strategy which is enabled by digital. So the plan of attack is usually on the 3 pillars, the way it goes. So the first is about what are your ambitions for growth, and what are the kind of portfolio do you have in order to deliver that kind of an ambition. And the next thing is about planning and execution of those growth. So these are the 3 major pillars in which we are now talking about achieving growth in the digital age, right? So if you look at this particular 3 pillars, there are a few things that run common. One is customer impact, because he's going to be the buyer. So there better be a very agile way of delivering it to the customer with the highest impact. And there has to be innovation in your product, and that is absolutely essential, where you'll have to start to integrate on digital. Globalization is actually another major factor. And overall, if you look at it, there is a strong leadership and culture for growth. So these are all the important elements, right, which goes into the operating model, and it's also called the art of possible, which means these are the major elements that goes into the operating model, because operating model is another very important factor to deliver innovation, because it's important to inculcate the DNA of innovation into the operating model to to either plan for your growth or execute for your growth, right? So this is a very simple model which digital strategy enables through. So what are the 5 digital imperatives for the next decade? Right, to the right, if you look at it. So digital has created a very strong discontinuity or a game-changing behavior, right? So in order to have a sustainable growth and competitive advantage, there are a few things. First is create value, transact value, and interact with the customers and suppliers and partners in a very effective way through the digital way, through the digital platforms which are there, and run their businesses, right? So this is what the discontinuity from the traditional platforms are, because it used to be one way of communication to the customers. Now we're talking about two ways. Then we were listening to the customers in a through different channels and forums. Now we are creating platforms where customer could interact with each other, and thereby creating community of sort for your customer, so that the community, it is not only the imperative of an enterprise to go and solve customer problem, but in fact, collaboration here we are talking about, if a community of your customer is formed, a customer to customer can actually help themselves. For example, if someone had a problem with the particular product and someone found a way to resolve the problem, they share the best practices on both. So these communities are also getting very popular, which is usually moderated by the enterprise, which means there is an expert who comes on to that kind of a forum and tries to moderate if things are going right, if the right kind of suggestions are being given to the people. So there is a strong feeling of community being built, and with the effective participation from the enterprise. So the larger part of burden on solving a lot of problems is minimized, because there are a lot of people helping each other, or the customers helping each other to resolve problems. So this is already a demonstrated fact in multiple brands, as you can see it. So this is not something new, but this is absolutely essential as of today, that everyone is having a digital presence or a social presence or a presence on the mobile applications, and so on, right? So another important thing that I wanted to mention is about, we all know e-commerce is great, right? It's already been tried, tested. We have a .com for anything and everything today, right? And very few people have figured out how to monetize social, right? And there are very interesting facts that are coming out of social in the form of social media analytics, which gives you a lot of sentiments, which gives you a lot of intelligence, be it on the customer intelligence, customer services intelligence, product intelligence that you launch in the market, ad marketing campaign intelligence that are coming out. So there are lots of intelligence, or even employee intelligence. The employees who are working in your organization might be discussing few things on the social media space. So what is the kind of intelligence that might be useful for running your businesses very effectively is what we're talking about, monetizing social media. So when someone is sitting with a humongous amount of data, be it Facebooks of the world, so they're basically sitting with a lot of assets of data, right? So if you can monetize that kind of a social media data with respect to intelligence, this could be for any platform. I'm not just saying about Facebook. For any kind of a platform which is generating a lot of data, there is a wealth of information that could be derived from it, and there are ways to monetize it. Make money leveraging digital beyond e-commerce. So now we're looking at outcome delivery and enablement. So we're all, doing transactions on e-commerce today, where you go buy a few things and that's about it. Right? Either you buy a ticket, you place an order, it comes to your home. Now we're looking for something above and beyond that transaction, right? So now let us say there was a big retailer, e-retailer, and you place some orders, and you of course entered few data about your date of birth, maybe your anniversary dates, and so on and so forth. Now, if the e-retailer is just focused on doing the current transaction and forget about you, he's doing a big mistake. Now, you have entered a lot of data in order to just do a registration, but if he can translate the data that he has into futuristic, that is post-transactions as well, there is a huge benefit that he can derive out of it. So you will have to remain sticky with the customer, not just look at it from pre-transaction or just the transaction, because that's where most of the people keep focused on acquiring a customer, right? But very little focus on after the transaction has been done. How do you basically monetize that kind of a customer, which is currently not a he's not making any more transaction, but how can you influence that customer by following him in order to make the next transaction? So that's the interesting part that we're looking at this point in time, going above and beyond, not just about e-commerce, but above and beyond that. So in a digital world, so let's take a look at how. Right? So before we go into slide number 11, I'd like to introduce, there are 3 stages of digital wave. So the first wave, as we call it, right, the products and services that may deliver customer goals, right? So customers like they want to buy a ticket or buying some few things on the internet. They go to the internet and post some, a few things they want to sell or buy. All these are happening at the bottom level, right? The first digital wave of digital commerce, right? So there is a transaction happening. We're looking on that at just a transaction level. Now, you generated data during transactions, right? Quite a lot of information. It also influences, let us say, you buy few things, which means you like those kind of things, right? So be it a book, be it a perfume, be it anything that you buy on the net, on the e-commerce. So we basically characterizes the person, you collect some details, and there is a second digital wave called the digital consumption of that data, right? So now we're not just keeping the entire, conversation only with the, transaction of digital commerce, but we're going to the next level of consuming the data. Now, once that consumption of data has happened, you can actually characterize a client or a customer or give them an identity, right? So that's the digital identity that we're talking about, is the third digital wave called the digital identity. So these are the 3 steps that we are, or 3 phases. Now, the first digital wave is clearly established, right? Most of the people are getting benefits out of it. Nothing new, right? Now we're talking about, when we're saying beyond Smac, we're talking about these 2 digital waves, the second digital wave and the third digital wave. I'll probably, represent by an example, right? By connecting the value, which the customer feels that there is a value, right? So how does that value, translate into something which is post-transaction, right? So let us see how he's getting those value after the transaction, right? So that's one of the examples that I will be just walking you through. Now let us go back. So in this, if you look at it, bottoms up at the right. So if you look at it, the first digital wave was about bundling products and services to deliver convenience and value for money, right? So we as I said, you want to buy a few tickets or buying a few articles and stuff like that on the net is becoming, convenient as well as cost-effective and value for money, right? So that's already been satisfied, and that's currently operational and giving you best of the benefits. So those are individual products with granular outcomes, very granular outcome. But is the e-commerce basically influencing, since you're buying something, is it influencing you to buy another thing as well as of today? So next time when you go onto the same, platform, is it influencing you to buy another thing because it's consumed some data from you for the first time, right? So we are now looking at the second wave, right, which is complex and multi-sector products, correct? So some of the examples that were very clearly done in some of the retail stores in the other countries was that if people buy more diapers, the trend, which is from the checkout bills or the receipts, they have analyzed that if you buy more diapers, you are bound to buy more beers, right? So how are they related? It's very interesting to know how they related. But this is a pattern that came out of the data that was consumed by the retailer. So if you look at it, there was another case where people found that if the customer buys a brand of shirt, they are bound to buy another tie, right? So these are, if you look at it, it could be within a same product sector, or it could be multi-sector products where you could influence and the customer beyond the transaction that they make. So simple granular outcomes now becomes very complex outcomes, because earlier it was just buying one product. Now you're also following the customer where he could buy more products, not just about one sector, but multi-sector sector as well. So if it has to be if this kind of a transaction is to be influenced, the customer has to be enabled through a very rich interaction. So that is going to fuel him to buy more or consume more. So that's the second digital wave that we're looking at above and beyond just a transaction. And the third one is about if a client is clearly identified. So he has an identifier. There is a value in aggregating and managing the customer's digital identity, right? So that's one. So once he's identified that he likes this kind of a brands and so on and so forth, right? He's been enabled with some more information. And then he understands that there is value. The moment you enable him with some kind of an information, so he starts to value saying that, okay, I have a value in mind. And if the information given to me, because he has consumed my data, and if he's able to give me some data saying that, with this data, I'll be able to do even more effective transaction, which is deriving more value to him, right? So let me take a small example before we, delve in a little more deeper. So just before the example, let me just finish this part about the story of three digital waves, right? So first wave at the bottom, if you look at it, customer experiences value when they archive outcomes. And some outcomes can be delivered by products and services. That's what we were seeing in the first digital wave. So those bottom, those nodes, small nodes that you see in the tree structure, those are the digital wave one. So they are basically now delivered through outcomes by products and services. That's basically helping you, right? And now we are talking about second digital wave is some outcomes cannot be delivered, but it can be enabled, right? So when you're talking about complex multi-sector delivery model, right, it is, you'll have to enable the client, right? So it is across multiple sectors, as we can see it, health and education and finance and adventure. So there could be multiple things. So these outcomes cannot be just delivered by one product, right? Or one, or there could be aggregation of products and services. So when there is an aggregation of products and services, it basically delivers a very complex outcome as well. That's the point. So next is about digital can help not only sell and support but also deliver and enable customer outcomes. So that is the biggest part of the digital wave 3, and the final one output is about digital can fuel growth. Now let us see a quick example about, we did discuss about the client really, the customer clearly understands what the value is and he's expecting out of a product or service, right? So how is he going to get this kind of a value? And at the same time, the enterprise which is offering the product or services also understands the value, and post a transaction, how they're able to basically help deliver that in the form of an example, right? So let's take a live example in the slide 16, as you can see. A simple case. This is a case that is taken out of a digital digitization of consumption from Allstate Insurance in the US. So Allstate Insurance very clearly understands the psyche of the customer in this case. So in this case, what the customer who is driving the car very clearly understands, what, my premium has to be low. No matter what, I'll try my best to keep my premium low because insurance is always going to be expensive. And the best value that you can, as an insurance provider, can give me is low premium. So here the insurance provider understands the premium, right? And the best part about the second step here you see is that the car is fitted with a lot of sensors, right? It's got a sensor in the wheel, it's got a sensor in the back, in the front, near the tail lamp, and it's got near the keyhole. So you see that enormous amount of sensor it has been packed with, which means it is going to transmit data, and there's enormous amount of data. So that's the Internet of Things, one part of Internet of Things I had mentioned a few minutes back. It's going to generate humongous amount of data. We're just thinking of millions and millions of cars generating so many amount of information, but there is a unique identity for the car which is generating more and more information about a car. Right? So there could be many more cars doing the same thing. Now the third thing is that driver goes through a lot of drive. He takes a U-turn. He goes through the no entry. He does a lot of things. He drives around the town. Right? So the fourth step is all insurance says, you know what? I have been trending your drive. Right? So it says you did a lot of risky moves between this time to this time on this particular venue. I think it is better if you could manage that. And you're driving too fast in some of the lanes. I think there is a possibility that there could be some eventualities. So if you could manage that, there could be some benefits. And there were a few crew working in some place, but you still were speeding or something, a bad area, hard brake area. So these few things were not essential, but you were trying to do that, right? So what is the benefit here? Which means I'm trying to minimize the set of accidents and casualties, right? If you minimize, if the owner or the driver minimizes the set of accidents or any kind of a mishap, there is a possibility that he doesn't have to pay any kind of, he doesn't have to do any claims because he's not meeting in the accident. He doesn't have to. In a very simple fact that he doesn't, if you don't claim, then your premium is going to be lower. So here, so in the same cycle that we were talking about, right? There is a transaction. Let us say it's already been done. You already got a premium. You've already, bought an insurance from a company. A transaction has been done. Now you fit in a lot of sensors, generate data out of it, right? Now you start to consume a lot of data. Data consumption is happening. So based on the consumption, you're starting to trend a lot of information out, right? So you're basically enabling the customer with a lot of information, saying that if you were driving like this, like this, like this, there is a possibility that you would meet with an accident. And in order for not to meet with an accident, these are the kind of guidelines, right? So which essentially means the customer is going to meet with a lesser number of accidents or no accidents at all, which will result him not claiming anything because there's no accidents. So the value for insurance company is that they engage with the customer very well. Second thing is for a driver, the insurance cost lower, right? Or the premium is lower in the fifth step that you see. So it's a win-win situation for both of them. So this is the three digital waves that we're looking at. It's not just about a transaction, but post transactions as well, which is very important for in this digital space, right? So that's the simple example that I wanted to represent, so that it's a clear understanding of the three digital waves here, right? Okay, so here we're talking about first digital wave, pure single transactions, right? That is what is happening in the first digital wave, e-commerce. Now we are talking about beyond e-commerce as second and third waves, right? Beyond e-commerce, we are talking about, just the simple example that we said about motor industry, integrated insurance and road conditions, road assistance, right? How it can enable certain outcomes and enable people. Right, and the third one is about once you understand the identity of the customer, it is much easier for you to facilitate that kind of input. Right? So that's a kind of a simple. We are going above and beyond e-commerce or beyond Smac as we can think about it. Right. So this is another representation about value of understanding the consumption has gone higher and the cost of understanding. So there is going to be a lot of data that is going to be generated because of so much of data that you're going to collect. But earlier also this was possible, right? And there were enormous amount of technologies that were applied on top of this big data to generate some meaningful insights, right? Or we can define as a value for the customer in understanding. So that was always there. But now the important factor to note is that these technologies, which basically help you delve in deeper into the big data and assume a lot of business insights, is getting really cheaper. Very cost-effective technologies, which is basically helping you. So the cost of understanding the granular consumption is going lower and lower because there are a lot of open source tools out there available in the big data space in order for you to apply on top of big data and understand your customers better. So these are the kind of, so the bottom line here is that the cost of digitization, digitizing granular consumption is dropping. Cost of understanding is also dropping, and the value that you get out of understanding granular consumption is rising. So that's the best part about this entire journey of technology trends about digitizing consumption. So with that, I'll just move to the post-transaction relationship. So earlier it was more about I need to put some effort in an effort. I can perform a task. There is a functional affinity. There is an emotional affinity, right? So that's a classic paradigm. Now, the emerging paradigm is that I'm no longer, just looking at individual outcomes, but a collective outcome. There is a community that is being built up, and how a collective outcome can come, and how this collective outcome can provide me a societal outcome as well, right? So now, stepping back to our, pre-transaction and post-transaction relationship. So in this graph, if you look at it, today, most of the people have been focused on pre-transaction relationships at the bottom left corner, right? They concentrate on getting the point of transaction. The moment the transaction is done, after that, the customers are on their own, and even the enterprises don't, they're not sticky with that and profile them and so on, right? So what we're talking about the future is that the post-transaction relationships. In the post-transaction relationship, we're talking about how to support the customer, right, in achieving their personal goals, right? G stands for those small GG thing, the goals, right? By doing a digital strategy or digitization, we are taking into a futuristic state of post-transaction relationships, right? So that's exactly the entire, digital revolutions that I was talking about, the three-step digitizations that I had talked about with few examples. So that's about taking you from very siloed approach to a very augmented approaches, and from a pre-transaction to a post-transaction relationships. So that's the most guiding principle here that can help achieve some goals in the best possible position. So if you look at it today, how the enterprises are positioned, right? The enterprises are positioned where back office is there. They have a ERP, you have a SEM, MRP, HR, all these wonderful systems. And in the front office also you have stacked up a lot of systems, starting from CRMs, client-facing web apps, client-facing mobile apps, and moderated social applications and so on, to connect with the clients, partner ecosystems, and your employees, and so on and so on and so forth. Right, so you've already stacked up a lot of systems like this, right? So but this is still helping you only with the pre-transaction relationships. Now we're talking about a customer domain, right? Where we're talking about post-transaction relationships. We're talking about the future. We're talking about those customers who are out there, out of your office. How are you going to capture their goals, and how are you going to satisfy? How are you going to remain sticky with their goals, right? So that's more important. That's the post-transaction relationships. So if you look at it very clearly, the enterprises are today geared very well in order to capture whatever the client is asking in the left, in the pre-transaction relationship. And now we're talking about going above and beyond, which means you will have to still have more post-transaction services out of your office, not front office, not just back office, but out of the office. So there are certain technologies how you can generate this data, whatever the data which is aligned to the value of the customer, right? How you capture that, and then consume that data and generate some kind of a information that is going to enable the customer towards their goals, right? So that's the kind of a digital journey that I wanted to take in the form of a quick conclusion for our presentation here. Is these are the steps, right? So obviously people would ask about, so how do I go about it, right? So there are 6 core disciplines that we're talking about, right? Starts with the define, where we understand how this value is generated, right? Is how the value is created, and in the digital economy, in your entire value chain, because the value chain could be complex in your own domains, right? And define your business model. That is extremely important, right? And how you generate digital economy out of it. Second thing is evolve, right? Design your required proposition. That is extremely important, because unless you design your innovative model into your operating models, it is very difficult to achieve that. And the third thing is about create. How do you, ideation comes out with new business ideas. How will you incubate this new ideas? Because unless you incubate it, there is no innovation happening on a large scale. And accelerating. So the moment you have, so the sinusoidal wave that I was showing you long back is about, once you've created this, great idea, it becomes incubated, it becomes innovation. Now it is time to do production, which means application phase, right? So that's where you need to accelerate, build and integrate enterprise-wide social, mobile, and web solutions. And after that, you need to protect your assets because it becomes very vital, generating a lot of revenues and growth driver, and and also protect your reputation. So that's where you enter into a phase called protect your digital assets, and then understand rapidly there is evolving digital customers, right? And their behavior is changing. It used to change for about 10 years, then it becomes 5 years, then it might be even much faster with the revolution being changed at a tremendous pace. So it's basically a cycle that it is important to remain sticky with the client post-transaction in order to get that kind of a data, consume it, and enable them towards achieving their goals, right? So that's the kind of 6 core disciplines towards an approach, how you can succeed in a digital age. And the real value propositions are these, right? So at the end of the day, this is what everyone wants out of a digital strategy, right? First is about grow my revenues. Take advantages out of opportunities creatively, digitally, and globally. Integrate successfully with, make sure your deal delivers. Create insights. It's very important, to make the right decision to improve your business performance. Remove complexity, simplify and standard your operating model, because the moment you start to incorporate your, digital ideas into your value chain, your operating models are bound to change. Operate globally, stay ahead with the right business model, and incorporate digital into your business model. It's very important because that's going to improve your efficiency. Create value for your support services as well, because of course the customer service is pretty much there. So customer support also needs to be more proactive in order to enable more revenues. So that's the idea here, right? So once you improve the efficiency, so, the support services also becomes a kind of input for more transactions. So that's also helping them making savings for a longer term. Is some of the value propositions that you can actually derive out of digital, right? So that's pretty much it. I would like to hear any questions or any of these things. If you have, I'd be happy to take questions at this point.